Okay, I'm gonna say this, Steve, because this morning I was in the Lord's presence, and he reminds me of a prophetic word that he had given to me on September 11, just this last September 11. And I sat in the Lord's presence and I was writing this word, but the word came out in a funny way. So early in the morning, before I go to pray, I love Turkish coffee, okay? It's a strong shot of coffee that just makes you gonna buzz. So at about 7 in the morning, I'm standing in the kitchen and I'm just cooking my, little Turkish coffee. And out of nowhere, a voice begins to speak to me. And I love it when this happens because it's not planned. It's almost like, can I tell you something now? And he began to say one sentence. He said, blown out of proportion. That was the word, blown out of proportion. And it grabbed my attention because it's like, what is going to be blown out of proportion? I don't understand that, Lord. But I immediately, pulled off the coffee, grabbed my phone and started typing, blown out of proportion. And the Lord begins to say this to me, Steve, in the kitchen. It started off as a personal message, then it ended up being a national message. He says this, as the evil which was done to you was blown out of proportion, so will my goodness and so will my favor. And I was like, amen, I received that. And then he says this is September 11. He said, so you will start to see this. And I released that the next day on the YouTube channel. You're about to see evil being blown way out of proportion in the open, and it will be on display. But do not worry, for my favor and my grace towards my people will also be blown out of proportion.
Wow.
And I was like, I had no idea what was coming. I did not see this war coming. But this morning in prayer, the Lord said to me, go back to what I gave to you on September 11. And I said, Lord, why September 11? He said to me, because that's their September 11 now. That's what they're facing right now. That's
what about Israel. Israel's now had their September 11th. What just happened to them, you're saying?
Yes. And so this is evil being blown way out of proportion for absolutely no reason. No one saw this was coming. There is no reason why this should happen. But you see, Steve, when evil begins to work its way, it doesn't just stop, by taking a small part. It continues to be blown to overwhelm us so that this is the time that we freak out. And then the Lord begins to remind me of Zechariah 2:8. I want to read that. It says this, for he who touches Israel pokes his finger in the eyes of God. This means that the enemy is so stupid, because to poke your finger in the eyes of God, I don't think that they understand what's about to happen. I don't think that they realize that it's going to be God himself fighting for his country. And then...
excuse me, just a second. Keep going. I got to step and turn something off. Keep going, okay? I'm going to mute myself.
No problems. Yeah. And then I'll keep going. Then I want to read this Psalm 121 verses 3-4. He will not stumble. Indeed, he who watches over Israel, he never slumbers nor sleeps. So I just want to encourage everyone that while you watch this, and while it can be confusing, and while we can have a lot of questions, God is got this. The battle belongs to the Lord. And let me tell you something. Sometimes you ask, but who does even the land, who is the land belongs to? Joel 1:6. It says this, a vast army of locusts invaded my land. So this war belongs to the Lord. And our part is to pray. Our part is to decree prophetic declarations of victory, that God himself will continue to do this. And so when I was in prayer, God began to remind me of David, young David, who was facing a giant, and he was distressed. He was like, he came, in actual fact, People were distressed. David himself was the one who walked towards Goliath. And it was David himself who said this to him. He decreed prophetic declarations even before he attacks him. He said to him, this day, God is going to give you into my hands. This day, I am going to give your body to the birds of the air. It is going to happen this day. And what did God do for David? He won the war this day. So many of God's people, we need to speak biblically, and we need to begin to prophetically release those declarations, knowing that God is for us and that nothing has changed under the sun. Israel has always been under war, and every time God comes through, and God comes through in a huge way. So